My wife cheated with our close friend, then forged documents to steal over $400, $0 of our inheritance, and now she's trying to kick me out of the house during the divorce. Did I seriously marry a con artist? I never thought I'd be the guy writing this kind of story, but here I am. You know those moments when everything seems to fall apart all at once? Yeah, that was me a few weeks ago. It started with a gut feeling, a nagging suspicion that something was off, but I never expected the bombshell that was coming. The kind of bombshell that turns your entire world upside down in a matter of hours. My wife, Lisa, always seemed a little too perfect. She was beautiful, charming, and she knew exactly how to get what she wanted. We met in college, married young, and for a long time I thought we had the perfect life. We had a nice house, good jobs, a little savings account that we'd been building for years. I thought we were solid. But the last 6 months, things started to change. She became more distant, secretive about her phone, and every time I asked about her, she'd brush me off with some excuse about work or feeling tired. Looking back, I should have seen the signs. The late nights, the unexplained absences, her phone always face down. But I was blinded by love or maybe just complacency. I trusted her implicitly. We had a good routine, and I didn't want to believe that someone I loved could do something so terrible. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being played. Then, about 3 weeks ago, I came home early from work. I had a gut feeling that Lisa was hiding something. I decided to surprise her just to catch her off guard. I parked my car down the street, quietly slipped into the house, and what I saw made my stomach drop. There she was in our bedroom with Jason, our best friend, the guy who's been part of our lives for over a decade, kissing her. Not just a quick peck, but full-on making out, like they couldn't keep their hands off each other. I froze in the doorway, my mind racing. My wife, my partner, the woman I trusted with everything, was cheating on me with someone I considered family. I never thought I'd see the day I'd catch my wife cheating, especially not with Jason. The betrayal hit me like a punch to the gut. I felt a mixture of shock, anger, and heartbreak all at once. My mind went blank, and I just stood there, watching them for what felt like forever before I finally backed out and left the house. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying what I saw, trying to understand how she could do this. How could she lie to me for months, pretend everything was fine, and then go behind my back with someone so close? The worst part was feeling like I was the fool in all of this. I had trusted her completely, and she'd turned around and done this right under my nose. It felt like someone had punched me in the chest. I was furious, but also numb. I couldn't believe someone I loved could be so manipulative, so dishonest. The next day, I started digging. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but I had to know the truth. I started checking her phone, her emails, her bank accounts. What I found was even more shocking. She had been forging documents, lying about our finances, and planning to steal over $400, $0 of our inheritance. She'd been secretly transferring money into accounts under fake names, all while pretending to be the perfect wife. I found receipts, emails, and even a handwritten note that detailed her plan to run away with Jason once she had enough money. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. My wife, the woman I'd loved and trusted, was orchestrating a con against me and our future. It was like I was living in a nightmare. I felt sick, betrayed, and furious. How could she do this? How could she lie so well? And worst of all, how could she think she could get away with it? I knew I had to confront her, but I wasn't ready yet. I needed time to process everything, to figure out what to do next. But one thing was clear: my life was never going to be the same after that day. The confrontation was inevitable. I couldn't keep pretending everything was normal, especially not after discovering the depth of her lies and the affair with Jason. I waited a few days, trying to gather my thoughts, figure out what I wanted to say. But honestly, I was furious, more than I'd ever been in my life. The betrayal cut deep, and I knew I had to face her sooner rather than later. One evening, I came home earlier than usual, my mind racing. I wanted answers, and I wasn't going to leave that house until I got them. She was in the kitchen, pretending to be busy with dinner, but I could see the nervousness in her eyes. I didn't say a word at first. I just looked at her, feeling the weight of everything I'd uncovered pressing down on me. Finally, I broke the silence. "Lisa," I said, voice trembling with rage and hurt, "I know what you've been doing. I know about the affair, the forged documents, the money you've been stealing from us. How long has this been going on?" She froze for a second, then forced a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "You're overreacting. You're just paranoid. I'm not doing anything wrong. You're making a huge deal out of nothing." I clenched my fists. "Nothing wrong? Are you serious? I caught you with Jason kissing him in our bedroom, then I find out. You've been lying about the money, forging documents, and planning to run away with him. How do you explain that?" Her face twisted into a defensive sneer. "Look, I was stressed, okay? The inheritance stuff was complicated and I didn't want to upset you. Jason's not a bad guy, he's just been there for me." "Stop," I interrupted, voice rising. "You've been lying, cheating, stealing, and trying to leave me with nothing. How long have you been planning this? How deep does this go?" She looked away, then spun her story faster than I could follow. "I never cheated on you. Jason and I are just friends, and the money, that was all a misunderstanding. I was going to fix everything, I swear. You're blowing this out of proportion. You're just angry because you're insecure." Insecure, that was the best she could come up with. I felt like I was losing my mind. She was lying so effortlessly, spinning stories like it was second nature. I knew I was supposed to believe her, but everything about her tone, her face, she was so bitchy, so dismissive, made me realize she thought she could get away with anything. That. She was smarter than me. I told her I wanted her to leave, not just for tonight, but for good. I needed space, time to think. She huffed and said I was overreacting, that I was being unreasonable, that she loved me and she'd never do anything to hurt me. But I saw through her lies. I knew she was trying to manipulate me, just like she'd done with the documents and the money. The more she talked, the more I felt like I was talking to a con artist. It was almost laughable how she kept spinning her web of lies, thinking she could just talk her way out of it. That night I couldn't sleep. My mind kept replaying everything, especially the moment I saw her with Jason. The betrayal was so raw, so overwhelming that I felt like I was drowning. I started questioning everything: our marriage, her love, my own judgment. How could I have been so blind? How could someone I trusted so much be capable of this level of deception? The next morning, I decided I wasn't going to be a victim. I'd gathered enough evidence to fight back, and I knew I had to protect what was left of our life together, if there was anything left. I contacted a lawyer, started drafting plans to get a hold of the financial documents she'd forged, and prepared myself for the inevitable court battle. I also reached out to a private investigator, just to confirm what I already suspected, that she'd been planning to leave with Jason and the money for a while. But the thing that stuck with me most was her attitude. She was so dismissive, so condescending, like I was just some fool she could easily manipulate. That realization made me angry all over again. I'd loved her, trusted her, and she'd turned out to be someone I barely recognized. A thief, a cheat, a liar. And as much as I wanted to break down, I knew I had to stay strong. I had to fight for what was mine, for the truth, and for my dignity. I told her she wasn't welcome back, that she needed to leave and not come back until she was ready to be honest. She yelled, called me paranoid, accused me of ruining everything, and tried to guilt-trip me into letting her stay. But I wasn't falling for that anymore. I'd heard enough lies. I was done being the fool. I just wanted her gone, and I wanted to start rebuilding from the wreckage she'd left behind. After she finally left that evening, I felt a strange mix of relief and rage. Relief because I no longer had to look at her with that fake smile, and rage because I knew this wasn't over. She, stolen from us, lied to my face, and tried to manipulate her way out of everything. I spent the next few days buried in legal documents, bank statements, and her emails. It was like peeling an onion, every layer revealing more lies, more deceit. I found out she'd been funneling money into accounts under fake names for months. She had forged signatures on documents, altered legal papers, and even created fake IDs to hide her tracks. The amount she planned to steal, over $400, $0, was staggering. She thought she could just take our inheritance, run away, and leave me with nothing. I couldn't believe I married someone capable of this. It was like discovering my wife was a con artist, and I had been the biggest mark of all. I also found evidence that she'd been talking to Jason about their plans, their secret messages, the late-night calls, the code words. They'd been coordinating everything. She even had a stash of cash hidden in the house, ready to escape when the time was right. The whole thing made me sick. How could I have been so blind? How did I not see the signs? I kept replaying all the little moments, her being overly defensive, her secretive phone calls, the way she'd dodge my questions. I knew I had to act fast. I contacted my lawyer, who was sympathetic but firm. We filed for a restraining order, froze her bank accounts, and started the process to recover the stolen funds. But I also knew that confronting her directly might be necessary, especially if I wanted to get to the bottom of her plans and stop her from running away with our money. One night, I decided to send her a message, just to tell her I knew everything. I told her I had all the evidence, that she was done trying to cover her tracks. I warned her that if she came back trying to take more, I'd have her arrested for fraud and theft. Her reply was typical, denying everything, calling me paranoid, accusing me of spying on her. That made me angrier. She had the nerve to call me paranoid when she'd been secretly plotting to run off with our inheritance, cheating on me with Jason and forging documents. I couldn't help feeling a deep sense of betrayal. The woman I'd loved, the woman I'd trusted with everything, was now just a con artist in a designer dress. I felt like I was in a nightmare, and I didn't know how to wake up. But I also knew I had to be smart. I wasn't going to let her walk away with everything she wanted. I started gathering more evidence, talking to financial experts, and preparing for the inevitable court showdown. Meanwhile, I couldn't help but feel a strange sense of emptiness. The woman I married, the person I thought I knew, was gone, replaced by someone willing to lie, cheat, and steal everything we built. It was like losing my best friend and my partner all at once. I'd ask myself over and over, how did I miss all the signs? Was I too blind, too trusting, or was she just that good at hiding her true self? The emotional toll was heavy. I'd go from furious to sad, from feeling numb to wanting to lash out. Every time I thought about her with Jason, I felt a stabbing pain in my chest. I kept questioning whether I should try to save what was left or just cut my losses and move on. But deep down, I knew I couldn't let her get away with this. Not only for myself, but for the integrity of what little we had left. I had to fight, not just for the money, but for my dignity and my sanity. I started reaching out to friends and family, trying to get their perspective. Some told me to fight, some said to cut my losses. But I knew I had to see this through. I wasn't going to let her destroy everything. I also hired a private investigator to dig into her plans further. Turns out she'd been talking about leaving the country once she had enough money, like she thought she could just disappear and start over somewhere new, leaving me in the dust. The more I found out, the more determined I became. I was going to take back what was mine, expose her lies, and make sure she paid for what she'd done. It wasn't just about the money anymore, it was about justice, about ending her con artist game once and for all. I knew this was going to be a long fight, but I was ready. I had to be. The legal process moved faster than I expected once I had all the evidence lined up. My lawyer was good, sharp, relentless, and we filed for a full financial audit, along with the restraining order. I could tell she was panicked, trying to spin more lies, but I had her cornered. Every time she opened her mouth, I knew she was just digging her own grave. The thing about liars, they're terrible at deceit when you have proof. She kept insisting she was innocent, that I was just jealous, that I was overreacting, like I was the crazy one. But I wasn't about to back down. I had everything: bank statements, forged signatures, her secret emails, even the fake IDs she'd used to open accounts. I handed it all over to my lawyer, and we started the process of freezing her assets, retrieving the stolen inheritance, and getting her held accountable. The more I dug, the more I realized that her entire plan was meticulously crafted. She'd been grooming herself to pull off the biggest scam of her life, all while pretending to be the perfect wife. One day, I got a call from the investigator I hired. He'd been following her movements, and what he told me made my blood run cold. She was actively trying to leave the country. She booked a flight to Mexico, planning to disappear with Jason and the money. That was the moment I realized I couldn't wait any longer. If she left, I might never see her again, or worse, she'd take everything and start a new life, leaving me with nothing. I called my lawyer immediately. We managed to get an emergency court order to freeze her passport and stop her from leaving the country. It was a small victory, but it felt like a huge win. I'd stopped her from running away with my money, and I knew I had to act fast to keep her from slipping through my fingers again. That night I sat alone in the house, feeling exhausted but somehow more focused. I thought about everything I'd uncovered about how she'd manipulated everyone around her, including me. The woman I thought I knew was just a master con artist. I kept replaying her lies, her sneers, her dismissive attitude. She thought she was smarter than everyone, especially me. But the truth was, she'd underestimated how far I was willing to go to stop her. I also started to confront the reality that I might never get my marriage back. I loved her, God, I still loved her, but I couldn't ignore what she'd done. The fact that she'd forged documents, stolen from us, and planned to leave me with nothing, it was too much. I realized that forgiveness wasn't an option here, not after all these lies and betrayals. I had to protect myself, my future, and my dignity. The hardest part was the emotional toll. I'd been betrayed by the person I trusted most, and that pain lingered. I felt stupid, naive even. How could I have been so blind? But I also knew I couldn't let her win. I had to fight for what was rightfully mine, my inheritance, my peace of mind, my self-respect. I started to see that this was more than just about money. It was about standing up to a con artist who thought she could get away with everything. In the middle of all this chaos, I also reached out to a counselor. I needed someone to talk to, someone who could help me process the betrayal. Sitting in that office, explaining everything in detail, I realized how much I'd been suppressing. The anger, the sadness, the confusion, they all came rushing out. I learned that I wasn't alone and that I didn't have to carry this burden by myself. That was a small comfort, but it helped me keep going. I knew I had to prepare for the worst, her trying to fight me in court, her denying everything, maybe even trying to accuse me of something to save herself. But I was ready. I had the evidence, the legal backing, and the support system I needed. I wasn't going to let her destroy what's left of my life. This was her last shot, and I was determined to see it through. No matter how much it hurt, I'd face whatever came next head-on. The court date finally arrived, and I was a nervous wreck. All the evidence I'd gathered, all the sleepless nights of digging through her lies led up to this moment. I sat in that courtroom feeling like I was about to face a judge, but really I was just trying to hold myself together. Lisa showed up too, looking smug and dismissive, like she thought she had already won. That arrogance made me want to scream. When the judge called the case, I presented everything: bank statements, forged documents, the emails, the secret accounts, the evidence of her planning to leave the country. I laid out how she'd been manipulating everyone, including Jason, and how she'd been trying to steal our inheritance for months. My lawyer hammered her with questions, and I watched her squirm under the weight of the truth. Her usual bitchy attitude was replaced with a nervous, defensive glare. Lisa tried to deny everything at first, but once I showed her the proof, she started to crack. Her face went pale and she stammered, making excuses about how she was stressed, how she didn't mean to hurt me, how she loved me. But her words sounded hollow, like she was just trying to save her own skin. The judge wasn't buying it. She was caught red-handed and the evidence was overwhelming. The judge ruled in my favor, awarding me control of the assets, freezing her bank accounts, and ordering her to pay restitution for the stolen money. She was furious, screaming at the top of her lungs, calling me a monster, a jealous fool. She even tried to accuse me of abuse, which was laughable. I just sat there, exhausted but relieved, knowing I'd done everything I could to protect myself and our future. But the most surprising part came after the court hearing. Lisa, still furious, showed her true colors. She stormed out of the courtroom, yelling that she'd make me regret this, that she'd fight me every step of the way. It was clear she wasn't going down without a fight, and I knew she'd try to come back with more lies or legal tricks. The thing was, I didn't care anymore. I'd won the battle, and I was finally starting to see a way out of the nightmare she'd created. In the days that followed, I started to feel a strange sense of clarity. The weight of her betrayal was still heavy on my shoulders, but I was no longer in the dark. I knew what she was capable of, and I was prepared to do whatever it took to protect myself. I changed the locks, set up security cameras, and made sure all our financial accounts were secure. I also started the process of divorce, something I'd been avoiding but knew I had to do. The emotional toll was still there, though. I'd loved her once, and part of me still wanted to believe she could change, that maybe she wasn't entirely lost. But the evidence proved otherwise. She was a con artist, a manipulator, and a thief. I couldn't trust her anymore, not after everything she'd done. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and angry, but also a strange sense of relief that I was finally free. Looking back, I realized how much I'd let myself get. I ignored the little signs, convinced that she was perfect, that she loved me. But the truth was, she'd been planning this for a long time. I just didn't see it. Now I'm left to pick up the pieces, rebuild my life, and try to forget the woman I once thought I knew. It's going to be a long road, but I know I'll get through it. I have to, for myself, for my future, and for the dignity she tried to steal from me. Now that the legal battle is over and the dust has settled, I find myself in a strange place, not exactly healed, but definitely different. I've lost someone I thought was my life partner, and I've gained a brutal lesson in trust and deception. I won't lie. There are nights when I still wake up angry, replaying every moment I missed, every sign I ignored, every lie I believed. But I also realize that I've learned something invaluable. Never underestimate the power of your own intuition, and never ignore the red flags, no matter how much you want to believe in the best. Looking back, I see how Lisa was able to manipulate those around her for so long. She was bitchy, condescending, and so good at lying that she convinced even her closest friends she was innocent. She thought she was smarter than everyone, that the con would never be uncovered. But her arrogance was her downfall. It's clear now that her entire life was built on deception, and I was just another mark she thought she could fool. The hardest part is accepting that I was by someone I loved. I trusted her with everything, my insecurities, my dreams, my future. And she used that trust against me. But I refused to let her define me or ruin my life. I've started focusing on myself again, therapy, reconnecting with friends, rebuilding my confidence. It's not easy, and I know I'll carry scars for a while, but I refuse to let her con artist ways win. One thing I want to say to anyone reading this who might be going through something similar: trust your gut. If something feels off, don't dismiss it. Dig deeper. Ask questions. Don't let anyone manipulate your feelings or your money. And if you find yourself betrayed, don't be afraid to stand up and fight back, whether that's legally, emotionally, or just by walking away. You deserve better than lies and betrayal. I also want to remind myself that I'm stronger than I thought. I survived this chaos and I'm still standing. I may have lost a lot, but I gained clarity. I know now what to watch out for, and I won't let anyone deceive me again. My life is my own, and I'm finally taking control of it. As for Lisa, I hope she gets whatever she's looking for, though I doubt it'll bring her happiness. She's a con artist, a manipulator, and she's going to have to live with the consequences of her actions. I won't be part of her game anymore. I've learned that some betrayals cut so deep that you have no choice but to cut ties and move on. In the end, I'm grateful I found out when I did. It's a painful lesson, but it's also a necessary one. I now see the importance of honesty, loyalty, and self-respect. I know I'll rebuild, I'll heal, and I'll trust again. Just wiser, more cautious, and a lot more aware of what's real and what's just a lie. This story is not just about betrayal, it's about resilience, about finding the strength to pick yourself up when everything falls apart. And I hope that anyone reading this who's going through something similar finds the courage to do the same. Because no matter how bad it gets, there's always a way forward. You just have to find it.